I'm going to go ahead and start recording. Well, thank you so much. I'm very excited to have you on. I love having a variety of guests, and I especially love it when I can find women in STEM. So I think it's great that you're able to do this. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm very excited.
Yeah. So I'm recording now so that I don't forget to hit the start button. We'll probably be maybe 30 minutes, 35 minutes. You're good on time?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. I'm gonna adjust my screen because it's kind of showing funny parts of my wall back there. Just fixing my backdrop. All right. Let me do that. I think that's good. All right. And I will have for the actual episode, I'll have read an intro for you, and I'll just draw that from your bio.
Okay.
And then one thing I like to give folks a heads up on is at the very end, I like having the guests say their one most important piece of advice to girls or women who want to follow in their path. And so I'll ask you that at the end, and then I'll ask you about where to find you online. So all of your platforms and your website, etc.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. All right. So we'll pause for a second and then we will start. Hi, Payton. It is so exciting to have you on today. I'm really thrilled to learn all about your history, your background, and what led you to where you are today, and of course, where you're going tomorrow and beyond.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here. My favorite topic is talking about women in STEM, so I couldn't be more thrilled.
That's awesome. So I always like to start with asking about what your childhood was like and who were your influences growing up?
Yeah, so I grew up in Tampa, Florida, so I guess it's not really a surprise that I ended up getting into the space industry. I remember when I was little, my dad and I would like run outside and watch shuttle launches from the front yard. So that was always something that was in the back of my mind. But as a child, I was never super interested in STEM or anything. I remember my parents would totally encourage me to do anything I wanted to do. I was in like the Battle of the Book Club and on the math team, but I also danced pretty much full time after school. I did like tap, jazz, ballet. I got to dance at Disney World on cruise ships. And that was like my whole life at the time. I loved it, but I didn't see myself being a professional dancer. Although I think that would be so fun. And I'd say like my big influencers when I was growing up would be my parents. While they didn't have college degrees or anything, I definitely pulled in skills from both of them. My mom is very creative and great at event planning, and I get to do that too. Alongside my job, I work with the United Nations for their Space Generation Advisory Council, helping them plan their conferences. So I have that from her, and my dad was in the Army and worked on helicopters. So I like to think that I'm just a nice little blend of those two on my best day. And I also have an older sister who has always been one of my biggest role models because she's so kind and so creative. So I'd say for sure my family, and they still are today.
That's awesome. Did anyone ever tell you along the path as you were choosing your degree, what you were going to do, that, hey, girls don't become engineers? Did you ever get any funny looks or strange questions?
Oh, yes. So I decided that I wanted to do engineering, obviously, right after high school. I went into college. I thankfully found a program that was good for me. And along the way, even my senior year, I'd have teachers saying, like, are you sure that's what you want to do? You know, you weren't like an A student. You were never super into all the science clubs or anything. Like, you really need to think about this before you jump into it. And my attitude was always kind of like, yeah, we'll see if it works out. You know, worst case, I'll find something else that I love. It's no big deal. So I went on to college, but I still had I had great supporters too, don't get me wrong, but I had tons of professors that would always say, like, you know, I don't think you really have the engineering mindset, this and that. And it's like, I'm already here, I'm taking the classes, I'm doing fine, I have internships. So it was always a little disheartening to have that. And every once in a while, I still forget that I guess it's not like a quote unquote normal thing to have women in engineering because I'll say what I do and people are like, wow, like I cannot believe you're doing that. I can't believe you work in the space industry. Like you don't look like an engineer.
That's
And so
what I
it's
was going to ask is, has anyone ever said, well, you don't look like an engineer?
oh, way more times than it should happen. And I know I guess they mean well, but it's kind of like yeah, what does it look like? I have eyelash extensions some days my hair's in a bun. Like that is an engineer.
Exactly. It's kind of like we're trying to be out there reframing what engineers and surgeons and CEOs look like, because it's so deeply ingrained sometimes within our society, just our preconceived notions of what various careers and people should look like, that I think we're in a role of education in many ways, because we're out there being role models and also just kind of demonstrating that your STEM professionals and women in other male dominated professions don't have to look a certain way or be a certain gender.
Exactly. One of my favorite examples of that, that's pretty new, that if anyone listening has kids, I would totally suggest watching. I watched all the episodes too. She's a great role model too for me currently. It's Emily Calandrelli. She's known as the Space Gal, but she filmed a space or a science show specifically on Netflix for kids. And she was 9 months pregnant when she filmed. And just seeing that, it's so empowering to be like, you can still have a great career and an awesome job and live your normal life too. Like there's no rules.
Tell me about the women in the space community. I know within orthopedics, in the past couple of years, we've had a Women in Orthopedics Facebook group, and it's just been this amazing community of women to have. And we talk about not just the medicine and the orthopedics, but just kind of life and things that are specific to the women's experience in the field. Is the space community similar in that way, as far as women, a group of women?
Oh, 100%. I'd say that's always my favorite thing when conferences in person were still a thing, was when you found another woman, no matter what her role was in the space industry, it was like, we can connect. Like, I love your shoes. Like, how's your job? How's your life going? And there's already this like, magic spark that happens because it's like, I understand your struggles. I know what you're going through. I know how awesome the great days are, how bad the bad days can be. And specifically, I found that for like my current generation is like the Brooke Owens Fellowship. That's something that's like a huge part of my life. And it's a whole community of women and gender minorities. And we have like group chats talking about like where you found your favorite like space related shirt. And then also to talk about certain situations that might happen at work or in school and how you can kind of deal with that. So it is very supportive.
And, I think sometimes when there are very few women in a field, especially earlier on, sometimes you don't have that community. Or when you finally meet another woman in your field, there exists, fortunately less so now, but there can exist sort of a competitive feeling. And I have come across other women where I thought, oh, great, maybe she'll be supportive of me during my schooling or during my training, and instead got a little bit of the cold shoulder. And I think that there still exists a little bit women who feel like, well, I'm special. I want to be the token. I want to be the only one.
Right.
And because they feel like there aren't that many so-called spots for women, they kind of don't want to share that playing field. Have you ever encountered that?
Unfortunately, yes. I'd say it is less common than being supported, which is awesome. I can't speak for anyone else's experience, but there always is that feeling. Even now, like we all have those rough days where you think like, man, I know I could be doing better. Look at my friend over here. She's kicking butt and I should be doing that. I should be doing even more. But something like a little piece of advice I heard recently was like, you have to think about the full picture. You have to trade your full life with their full life, and you don't know their struggles and challenges. And personally, that's been super helpful when it does get a little like competitive, whether it's real or not.
So you mentioned the Brooke Owens Fellowship. Brooke Owens, for our listeners, was a beloved space industry pioneer and an accomplished pilot who unfortunately had passed away. Tell me about the fellowship, what it means to you to have been selected as a fellow, and how do you think that the work that you're doing within that honors her legacy?
Yeah, so the Brooke Owens Fellowship, like I said, it is my favorite thing in the world, I guess in the galaxy. But it's a program that matches women and gender minorities up with an internship, a mentor, and then you get to attend the Brooke Owens Summit, which is like the best 3 days of like parties and projects and astronauts and all the best people you could think of. And to me, it truly has changed my life for the better because I've gotten all these amazing mentors and role models, and it just builds this community of support and it's for engineers, for business people in the industry. You know, there is just a lack of women overall in the space industry. So there really is a home for everyone there. And I just can't praise it enough. I was talking with one of the founders the other day, and I was just telling her, like, hey, you know, like, I've learned so many things, whether it's to like the cheesy things, like how to be a better person and support your friends, but also just to like think back to where I was in high school and how 17-year-old me would be like so impressed with what I'm doing right now, which is kind of crazy to think about because I do have those days where it's like, man, I could be doing more. But it gets you thinking. And I think it's going to have a great impact on the industry. It already has, because I have younger girls in high school or younger in college that reach out to me that are like, how do I get involved? How can I do this? And whether they become a part of the fellowship or not, it just kind of builds that community even greater. So.
Now, do you ever have pinch me moments?
Oh, 100%. I'd say my favorite one that I think of all the time is when I got my offer for my NASA internship. That was always like a reach goal. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And I was actually touring a NASA facility at the time, looking at the James Webb Space Telescope, which is going to be amazing.
Uh-huh.
And I got the email on my phone, like, you're in, you're going to be a NASA intern. And that was just like oh crap, like also like an I can do this moment, but also like, what the heck is going on? Like, what is my life? And it's only been even better every day from then. But
That's
yeah, it
awesome.
definitely doesn't seem real.
So you are working on Spaceship Two in the Mojave with the spaceship company. I know there are certain things that you cannot talk about, and like if you told me, you'd have to kill me or something. But what can you tell our listeners about what you're doing?
Yeah, so my job specifically, I'm a flight sciences engineer. So I do a bit of aerodynamics and thermal work. And it's pretty incredible because while my role is really small in the grand scheme of things, I get to play a role in like making people's dreams take flight, which is our nice little saying, you know. But we have public news that there will be a flight launch window opening on October 22nd. So everybody gets to watch that. But pretty much like anyone that gets to work there, you are making people's dreams come true, whether it's your own or someone else's. And I think that's really great. It always keeps you moving during the day too. But definitely watch out for us. There's going to be some really cool stuff coming up.
What do you think was your biggest challenge in you're a 2019 grad from Florida Polytechnic University,
Yeah.
and what do you think was one of your biggest challenges taking on your first job and kind of easing into that role?
Yeah, this is something I'm still learning too. I have a very bubbly personality. You know, I'm normally relatively happy. So trying to come across as a serious engineer can be a little tricky sometimes because people see me and think like, there's no way she knows anything about math or science. So that's always been a balance. My coworkers are great. The Brooke Owens Fellowship community is awesome. But when you meet outsiders, it's kind of like, how do I tell my story in a way that people take me seriously, but still respect me for who I am as a person? That's still the biggest challenge, and I'm sure I'll have plenty of years to really hone in on how to handle that. But yeah, it's still a little tricky.
Right. And it drives me crazy when I hear about women in various work settings saying, you smile too much, you
Mhm.
don't smile enough. And it's like, I'm going to smile when I want to. Damn
Right.
it. So in your experiences thus far in the engineering and aerospace industry, what were your biggest fails, or maybe one of your biggest fails or disappointments, and how did you get back up?
Yeah, so this one, I talk about it all the time. I'm totally open about it now. Well, back then it was like the worst thing to ever happen to me, which means I guess my life is pretty okay, which is nice. But my freshman year, I went into college not taking pre-calculus or anything in high school because my big plan back then wasn't engineering. So I went in kind of blind and I had to retake Calc 1. And at the time, that was like, I can't imagine anything worse. All of my friends were moving on to Calc 2. And I really thought like, I've learned my lesson. I need to study more. I need to figure this out. It's never going to happen again. And then my senior year, you know, I'm all excited looking for jobs, this and that. And I take differential equations and then I have to retake that too. And it's that thing, like when you look back, it's totally nothing, but it weighed so much on me. And I thought, like, this is the end. I've worked all this way and I've ruined it today. Like, that's it. And I was talking to one of my mentees that I have through work, and I was like, look, like, if you ever come across this, like, it sounds cheesy, but it's not the end of the world. And like I said, I'm sure I will have way more fails in my life, unfortunately, but that was one that really stuck with me, but taught me a really nice lesson in the end.
I do think that when we run into difficulties and we have what in the moment may feel like a failure, those are really there to teach us lessons. And, and I think I talk to a lot of women who say, you know what, I look back and I don't really regret anything because even with my disappointments and failures, that shaped me to uh, shaped me to who I am today. And so I think that those are just kind of part of the natural ebb and flow of life. If you don't have failures and if you don't have challenges, I think you don't grow.
Mhm.
So
It's
where do you think you'll be in 10 years? Where do you think you'll be in 30 years?
um dreaming really big in 30 years. I would love to be in space. That would obviously be like the best end goal. But I do really see myself jumping into more of a creative type engineering role at some point, whether that becomes like lead for a great project in the space industry or just like a smaller place, starting my own company, anything that just kind of lets me branch out and do more things than just math. While I love that so much, I can't wait to build my skill set and become more confident in my engineering skills to where I can just tackle everything at once. And that's 23-year-old me saying that without like a family and real responsibilities. But that's what I hope to do.
Right. That's awesome. Hope to see you there. How do you think we can get more girls and women into the STEM fields? Where do you think the answers lie?
I do think about this quite often since it is so near and dear to my heart. And I'd say we're doing a great job with like getting young children into it. Now, we have all these great after school programs and toys and shows. But I think a tricky part is like kind of keeping them there in college, just because that is like so recent for me. Those tough days can really weigh on you, whether you did like have to retake a class. And then someone's going to say like, let's use you as the prop to get people into this engineering event. I've had that too, which is crazy. Um, just all of those things compounded together, we need a better support system for that early on in your career. I think it's easier to find it at work, but that middle ground is kind of tricky still. So I'd love to see some improvement there.
Absolutely. I love having a diversity of guests on this show, including a wide age range. And so I have had a guest as young as 14. I've had those kind of in your phase of career to seasoned veterans. And I learned something from each and every guest. And I know our listeners do too. So if you had one good, solid piece of advice for girls who want to follow your path, what would that be?
I would say find and collect as many mentors as you can from all walks of life, all ages. They can all bring something awesome to your own personal journey and help you in so many more ways than you could ever imagine, whether they're directly in your field or the job you want in 15 years or someone just to talk to about your day and your side projects. That's going to make a world of difference in everything.
And I think it's important to note also that mentors and having a mentorship is not always a formal thing. I'm sure you've found along the way that you have gotten mentors that it's like you've developed this relationship, it's casual, it's informal, and then a year or two down the road you say, hey, that's a mentor.
Oh, for
Right?
sure.
Absolutely. Well, I've really enjoyed talking to you for the 6% with Nancy MD. Thank you so much for being on. I would love for the listeners to be able to know where to find you online and keep up with all the exciting things that you're doing.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Payton Barnwell, Payton with an A, or on my personal website, which is paytonloves.space.
I love it. That's like the best URL ever.
Thank you.
Thanks again so much, Peyton. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you too. Have a great day.
Thank you. All right. That is a wrap. Awesome. How'd you feel about that? Good?
That's great. I always word vomit, but it's like that will come with experience, I'm sure. So,
No, it's
oh,
great. That's okay. I do that too. And I think that's why podcasting is kind of a good medium for me because you just get to talk.
that is nice. And so sorry, I noticed my email made a sound. I
Oh
did.
no, it doesn't come through. I think,
Oh, okay.
or at least, I have separate audio tracks. That's what I was double checking, and those can be edited out.
Okay,
No
perfect.
worries. I think mine was dinging too, but I think I only hear mine in my headphones. So I got to change that so it's less distracting. All right. Well, thank you so much. I am launching season 2 on October 5th. I'm kind of finalizing the lineup. You'll be a part of season 2. And I'll have a couple of social sharing images and I'll send those on to you by email.
Okay.
And I'll give you the launch date. And so when your episode comes out, if you don't mind sharing with your network, personal, professional, whatnot, that would be wonderful. Just trying to get the word out a little bit more about this podcast. I think a lot of people enjoy it.
Okay, yeah, definitely. And thank you so much again. One thing, should I like
Yeah.
keep it a secret until then, or am I allowed to tweet
You
something?
can definitely say you're going to be on, and so you may see on my various platforms I'll say coming soon, and I'll kind of hint at who's coming on, but it's nothing's a secret. You can say, hey, my episode is coming up and here's the link, this is where you'll find it,
Okay.
and then as soon as you know the date, fine sharing that too. So
Okay, sounds good.
yeah, we love to build a little hype. That's good. All right. Have a wonderful day. Have a great weekend. And it was so nice to connect. And I'm sure we'll be in touch again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Have a good one. Bye bye.
Okay, thanks.